Hi there and welcome to what really is a combination review and row along workout. Now I'm going to get straight into a 30-minute workout today, so if you want to just climb on your machine and start warming up before we get into that, please do, or you could always use the first 3 or 4 minutes of the 30-minute row to warm up how you wish before we get into the main row. So obviously, well, hey, what's this? It's a water rower. So I've got hold of a water rower to add in content, not replace content from the Concept 2. I still have my Concept 2. I'll still be doing probably the majority of my workouts on the Concept 2, but because there's so many water rowers that watch my videos, I really wanted to show you some love by doing some rows on this, and that also means I can make some content comparing the two of them, making some reviews and kind of doing some row-along workouts and whatever for the water rower. So yeah, and just to kind of see what it's like. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to row for, like I said, for 30 minutes. I'm going to do a nice low intensity, 20 strokes a minute row, just to kind of bed in and see how I feel, because this is literally going to be, well, I've just done a 1 minute row when I'm testing out the Smart Row app, but this is really going to be the first proper row that I've ever had on a water rower. So I'm going to do that row, and I'm also going to talk to you at the same time about why I've got it, what I intend to do with it, and all that kind of stuff. A little bit about technique and stuff as well, as I kind of experience it while I'm on this water rower and things. So hopefully it'll be an interesting row, okay? So if you have been doing a slight warm up while I've been talking, you can stop and have a quick drink before we get into the main session. Hopefully, if you're on a Concept 2 or whatever machine, you have set up your machine how you want it to be, drag factor, resistance, how you want it to be. The monitor is at eye height if you can, so you don't have to look up or down. And your foot straps are set to a height where you're able to come into the front of the machine with your shins in a vertical position comfortably. Now, comfortably is the key there, okay? If you're set too high, you can get a little bit bound up, and in order to get your shins vertical, your heels have to come right off the foot plates. If you're set too low, you can go scooting kind of past that point, all right? So, like I say, we're gonna do a 30-minute row. Now, your intensity is round about 5 out of 10, okay? Now, if you're well trained, then that can be round about 2K plus 18 pace if you have a 2K average time. If you're kind of new to rowing and you're not that well trained, you've got to back off that intensity to around about 2K plus 20 if you have a 2K time. You might not, so in which case 5 out of 10 effort, which is kind of the same as if, imagine you're walking up a constant flight of stairs, okay? You know, after like 3 flights, you're going to be out of breath, your heart rate's up, and you then have to kind of reduce the intensity of how fast you're climbing up, but you can still climb. That's the intensity we're working at today, okay? Right, big long intro, I know, but I had to kind of set up the parameters for today's row. Are you ready then? We're going to get going in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Right, whoosh. Well, that's a different noise to the Concept 2 for a start. It's a lot quieter. Or at least, I think maybe the initial whoosh of the water is quieter, but then you don't get the wind down of the fan either. But hopefully, it doesn't matter what machine you are rowing on along with me. Just seeing my rhythm, moving up and down, even if you're on a Concept 2 or I don't know, a Reebok trainer or who knows, it's still good enough. It doesn't matter what machine you're rowing on. All it really matters is that you're rowing and that you're getting a good workout. And that's kind of my thinking when it comes to why I got this rowing machine, is to really put that across. Is that unless you are really focusing on indoor rowing championships on a Concept 2, or you're training for a world record on a Concept 2, then in most cases, as long as it's a decent rowing machine, anything will do. Okay, so I could train on this water rower and then turn up to my High Rocks events and not really feel like I've been missing out by not training on a Concept 2. It's quite eerily quiet, to be honest, in between. I feel every time I'm on the return stroke, taking a breath, I'm like, someone should be talking. Then I realize it should be me. But yeah, it's important to really state that this isn't here to replace my Concept 2. It's an addition to it because, well, for a start, I won't be taking this out into the garden. And I do have wider plans to go kind of traveling around the country and trying to row in different places. And because the water rower doesn't easily disassemble, I wouldn't be using this. I'd still be packing up my Concept 2. So, 3 minutes in, what's my initial thought? Well, at least my watch knows I'm rowing, because it just buzzed at me. I mean, it's definitely enjoyable. I definitely know I'm getting a workout from it because I'm slightly out of breath. So, in terms of effort versus the Concept 2, I'd say it's right about the same. 20 strokes a minute. I'm down at 2:03 pace, which is where I'd be on the Concept 2 as well. Of course, I will do comparison videos where I row like a 500 meter piece or whatever on both machines, and then compare not only my actual pace but perceived effort and heart rate and stuff too. Sound, like I said, is a lot quieter. I think if you lived in a flat, or I don't know, you had a reason that you couldn't make much noise, then I really do think this beats the Concept 2. Like I say, maybe the initial whoosh might be similar in volume, but it really quickly dies out. Stroke, well, positions, as in my body angles, I don't feel like it's any different to the Concept 2. I'm able to come forwards, shins vertical, forwards tilt, arms straight, and then drive out from the front, which frankly is the most important part, and what a lot of rowing machines get wrong. If you look at some of them, they don't let you get into this arms out forwards tilt without punching the monitor. So even though I've only got an iPhone attached as my monitor rather than an iPad still wouldn't be at any risk of me punching it. Because it is, just quickly to move away from the technique thing, just to say this is the Smart Row version of the water rower. So rather than the standard monitor or even the S4 Bluetooth module, this one is a lot more accurate because it just measures force. So the coil at the front that the strap runs over measures the force like a power meter on bike pedals, and then it also knows my stroke rate, and so it can work out exactly the amount of power I'm putting into each stroke. Now, this is where I'm going to go nowhere near comparing it to a Concept 2 for how it reads power, but it's not a direct force reading on a Concept 2. It's about the fan turning, so if nothing else, it means that things like the bungee cords, the things that make you, or make the handle recoil on a Concept 2. There's some people that argue that that has an impact on the Concept 2. Whether you agree or not is another matter. But even though I'm fighting against water in the drum on this rowing machine, all that's doing is giving me something to pull against, but it's the coil at the front there, oops, that's reading the effort. Anyway, so I'm not entirely sure, going back to technique now, sorry. From a technique point of view, what my posture is like. I think I'm managing to get up and tilted forwards, but I have to say, this seat isn't the most comfortable in the world. Now, at the risk of sending you elsewhere, you should watch a video on YouTube from Austin at Training Tall about the seat on a water rower, because he describes it perfectly. But basically, there's the divot at the back for your tailbone to kind of nestle into so it doesn't get bruised when you're rowing. But at the front of the seat, there's a lip, which I really don't understand why it's there. It's almost like they've designed the seat for your backside to kind of sit comfortably inside. But unfortunately, that promotes a very tucked, kind of rolled back posture rather than a powerful, primed, more, I don't want to say upright, because that makes it sound like you're a plank of wood. But that lip at the front, when I'm trying to sit with a good posture, is digging right in to the top of my hamstrings and causing causing quite a lot of discomfort. I was trying to think of the opposite of, would it be inconsiderable rather than considerable? Anyway, so in Austin's video on his channel, which please do go watch, he takes the seat off and rotates around so that the lip is at the back of the seat. And although that doesn't give your tailbone anywhere to sit into. If you have a good posture, you shouldn't really be sitting on your tailbone anyway. But I'll give it a go, flipping the seat a la training tall. And if that doesn't help things, I may have to look and see if there's any third-party seat covers or something that change the seat around into something a bit more comfortable. Because I tell you what, I'm only 13 minutes into this row, and already I'm thinking half hour is going to feel a little bruised at the end, and I don't know if I'd want to do a 10k or an hour like this. But then, if you think about all the people that complain about a sore backside on a Concept 2 when they first start out, and I quite happily say that it does take 4 or 5 sessions for your backside to get used to it, and that kind of bruised feeling then goes away. So maybe that would happen on this too. If you've got a water rower, let me know your experience in the comments to this video. What about the handle? It's definitely a different shape than I'm used to. I'm used to the kind of winged design of the Concept 2. So it being a straight bar doesn't really change anything, but I do find I'm constantly kind of playing with my pinkies off the end of the handle, whether it's that I'm searching for a slightly wider handle, or it's to do with the angle that I'm pulling the handle in at. But one good thing is that instead of a round tube like design to the Concept 2, this is more of a flat oval. It's like rounded at the ends but straight across the top and bottom, and that makes it a lot easier to think about just hooking your fingers over the handle instead of kind of grasping it in a death grip. In fact, if I try and grasp, it kind of makes it a bit more uncomfortable, and I can really feel the tension coming through my arms as a result. Whereas if I go back to hooking, it all feels just a little bit simpler. Now, feet, I'm still getting a little bit used to. I think I've got the height set right. I'll have to wait until I'm editing this video to see if I'm coming forwards in a shins vertical and whether my feet are coming off the foot stretchers, but it feels comfortable enough. The only thing I'm a bit unsure about is that my heels seem to be coming in towards each other, so my toes are pointing outwards, kind of outwardly splayed. And what I don't know is whether this is because of the design of the foot plates or poor technique. From my point of view, I can't think why Or maybe I'm coming up on my toes a little too much at the front, and therefore there's an element of rotation going on at the same time. There's one to keep an eye on, another one to interrogate if I row my next workout in socks. Then one of the things I didn't like the very first time I used a water rower was that the design of the one I was using had the return flow of the handle quite low, so it felt like everything had to come down as I came into the front, where on this model it's very natural to just come backwards and forwards at the same height, almost to the point that I thought I'd try it after this stroke. If I was the type, if I scraped the handle down my knees and then lifted it back up at the last minute, the, what do you call it, strap, ribbon is rubbing off the top of the machine. So it's a good indicator that I'd be dropping the handle too low on the return. And then coming, I mean, it's really rare that you come in too high anyway. So there are some people that throw the handle over their knees. But again, even they, when they come in to the front of the stroke, tend to reset handle height. So the bigger worry is the people who dump the handle really low. And because of the structure at the front, you can't. So the amount of people that will drive out of a Concept 2 with the handle down here, you can't actually do that on this unless you take a really short stroke to here, which you'll know is the wrong thing to do. So really, all that kind of leaves is feel. How does it feel? How does the stroke feel? And I'll talk about the return first. So that's when the recovery here is definitely a lot lighter than a Concept 2, where the bungee shock cord can kind of pull you forwards a little bit. There's none of that on this. You don't get any help. So you have to make sure you get those body angles correct. So arms away, forwards rock, then bend knees, and you'll slide forwards. You shouldn't have to tug on the foot straps in order to do so. So still all happens naturally, but where there may be a slight feel of help from the bungee on a Concept 2, you don't get it here. But the drive itself, it's hard to describe. It's a little bumpy, is that the right word? Compared to Concept 2. The start of the stroke is fine. I can feel that power coming in. But there's a point midway on each stroke. So there. There. I don't know whether it's like you get the initial acceleration of the blade in the water, or the blade on the drum, that then when the power starts to fade in my leg drive, it's like the water catches up with it, and therefore that's where the bump is. But trying to look at the drum and time the kind of bubbles of the water with where that bump in the stroke feels. And it really is that when the white water of the drive dies down, that's when I feel the bump. And you can see it on the force curve on the Smart Row app, where I've got a nice smooth curve to start, but then as it hits the top of that curve, there's like a little plateau, little kink in that curve before it drops down. And I don't know whether that's to do with power fading before my back and arms add in power, or what. But it's one to investigate, see why that may happen. Maybe at higher stroke rates, when there's not as much slowdown of the water, that won't be as evident. There's definitely one thing I've heard people say about water rower, is that low rate rowing compared to more intense stuff don't quite get the same, it's almost like a logarithmic change as you do in a Concept 2, where the difference between 30 strokes a minute and 20, you're still needing to put the same power into each stroke, just you're doing more of them at 30. So therefore, the flywheel feels lighter because it's not slowing down so much. But at 20 strokes a minute, it does feel heavier, but like I say, in a kind of almost a linear, not logarithmic. Whereas, what I've heard people say about the water rower is that low rate rowing is considerably tougher in comparison to high rate rowing. But that's what people say. So it's another one for me to investigate. It's definitely still like a 5 out of 10 effort. Like I say, the biggest discomfort I'm experiencing on today's row is the seat on my backside. I'm still at 20 strokes a minute. And I'm kind of hovering between 204 and 207 pace. Not entirely sure what is creating such a disparity. Stroke length seems to be around about 133. Oh no, 139. Okay. Let's see if I can All right, so 137 I've been at for the past few strokes. So I think that's the other thing that the Smart Row device does. It knows your stroke length, it knows the force you're putting into it, and it knows your strokes per minute. So that's how it can accurately work out your pace without any outside factors needing to get involved. So it doesn't care how much water I have in the drum. That only makes a difference because it's something for me to push against. Right, so we're under 2 minutes, and I know this has been a bit of a rambly review of the water rower, but kind of wanted to go through it. Well, for everyone really, for those who have a water rower, so you can comment on anything I've been saying, if I got anything wrong, anything else you'd like to point out. Can you even tell me what the kink in my force curve is about? And then for non-water rower people, hopefully it's interesting to hear about it from a Concept 2 rower's point of view. Because the thing is, unless you have, like I say, you're not going to turn up to the World Indoor Rowing Championships and demand a water rower. So there are things that Concept 2 does that a water rower doesn't, but in the end, it's all about the workout. As long as you get the workout you're looking for, usually it's not the machine that matters, it's you that matters. Okay, 2 more strokes. 1 more. Oh. Right. Oh. My little hamstrings definitely do feel a little bit bruised and used. So there you go. That was my first ever proper row on a water rower. Because like I say, even the one I used before was actually broken. So I was on it for 5 minutes. Didn't like it because both of the foot stretchers were down at the bottom because they'd worn out. And the strap was worn and all that stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was nice. I'm kind of intrigued to find out. I'll take a screenshot because that last curve shows you what I mean about the kink on the way down. So I'll post that now, in fact, so you can see it. So there we go. That's the water rower. I will make some workouts on this. I'm going to continue to make workouts on the Concept 2, don't worry. I will make some comparison videos and all that stuff too. So hopefully this wasn't just a colossal waste of money just to buy myself a new toy. But thank you to all the Patreon people, because it's your kind patronage that gave me the funds to be able to buy this in the first place. So without your help, this wouldn't have happened. So so if you want to, it's patreon.com/RowAlong if you want to. Right, I'm gonna go and do some stretching off the machine because I have to be quite careful about my stretching because I think I've damaged a hip flexor and whatever. So rather than talking you through it, so what I might do is just tag on a stretching section from another video. We'll enter into stretching session next. If you don't have time to stretch, that's perfectly fine, but please stretch your quads and your hamstrings at the very least, okay? Not in the shower, I don't want you to slip and fall over, but make sure and stretch them at least, okay? Or Stretchy John has just appeared, top corner of the screen. You can follow him for some structured stretching, or you can follow me for some on the machine stretching if you don't have space to stretch off it. So, put your legs back in the straps, keep them a little bit loose, the straps that is. Put Put your hands in the air and then just bend forwards. Okay, so you've got straight legs, and that's not bend, fold forwards is the word I'm looking for. So let's do that again, fold forwards. I'm not going to edit that, but you'll get what I mean. So point is that you're folding your chest down towards your legs rather than it being bend. Okay, so that's why I'm saying I used the wrong word when I said bend, because that makes it sound like you're rounding your upper or lower back. But if you do that kind of fold forwards, then you should get that stretch right up here into your hamstrings as you come forwards. If you don't, chances are you've maybe got a little bend to your knees, which you don't want to do. So let's do our glutes next. Put one leg up onto the rail. Bring your other leg over so that your heel is in the crook of your knee. Bring that knee up across your body. Hold it in place with your other arm. Hold onto the back of the machine to stabilize yourself, and then rotate down into that glute. Okay, so hopefully this will kind of get right in here for a nice little stretch. How much you pull this knee across your body can affect how much sort of stretch you get. Where you have the knee and kind of ankle placed, how high your ankle's placed to that knee, that can affect things as well. How much you rotate round into your glute, that all makes a difference. So let's change legs. Do the same again. Hold your knee in place, and it's always, they've got to rotate. It's always interesting to feel whether one leg is tighter than the other. So in this case, my left glute is a lot tighter than my right, and I couldn't tell you why. Can't think of any reason why my left one would be any tighter, but it's interesting, and it does make me wonder whether there's some kind of an imbalance going on, if that's the case. Or maybe I've just been sitting strange before I came out, who knows. But anyway, it's worthwhile stretching. So let's get off the machine, stand up next to it, and we'll do our quads. So you can hold onto the monitor to stabilize yourself if you want. Flick your foot up so that you can hold your heel against your backside, and then hold it in place, trying to keep a good posture with a straight line between your shoulders, hips, and knee. And hopefully the quad will get a stretch here. If you've got your positioning wrong, your posture wrong, if you're kind of leaning back or whatever, or leaning forwards, it can change, talking of change, let's swap legs, it can change where the muscle is getting stretched. So you really want it to be the quad, the big main meaty muscle at the front of your leg, not your hip flexor. So the hip flexor is right up at the top, up at your hips, funnily enough. And if you touch that, it should feel relatively relaxed, not completely loose, but relatively relaxed, especially compared to your quad. If your hip flexor is getting anything of a workout or stretch, you're doing it wrong. And we're about to do the hip flexor, so you don't need to do it. So hip flexor, put one knee on the ground, foot behind you with toes touching the ground, heel up in the air. The front foot, your knee is above your ankle, and you have a nice posture, and all you're doing is you're pushing this hip forwards, okay? So you push that hip forwards, the knee comes over the top of your ankle, but you have a good posture again. And what that should now do is give you a fantastic stretch into that hip flexor. So right up here, whereas before this felt nice and kind of loose, a little bit relaxed, now up here feels nicely stretched. So this will give me a chance to just stretch off that hip flexor. We'll swap legs. Now remember, it can be quite common for people to blame the hip flexor for tightness, when actually it's not the hip flexor that's the problem, it can possibly be hamstrings. So it's worthwhile doing a test just to check what your hip flexors are like, and you can check out the Jeff Cavalier Athlean X channel here on YouTube. Oh, someone just messaged me. And there's a good test on there for how to check if your hip flexors are tight or not. So there's no point stretching them if actually it's your hamstrings that's the problem. Right, let's do shoulders next. Oh, I had an itch there, I'm sorry about that. So hands straight in front of you, pointing directly, and then bring it across your body, so it's right against your body. Use your other arm to just add a little bit more force as you pull it against, and that should give you a nice little stretch up here. Remember, and relax, don't have it up in your ear, okay? So nice and relaxed to help that stretch come through, and that's important. And that should hopefully stretch your shoulder, which is quite handy. Let's swap over. Well, I always say this, but your shoulders shouldn't really take that much of a beating, because really they're just a link to the power. Fair enough, at the back of the stroke as you're pulling in, you might put in some power, but for the majority, especially at the front of the stroke, you shouldn't really be feeling it from your shoulders. You should be hanging off your shoulders. So if you're putting force in at that point, and you're getting some kind of, oh, this feels like it's hard work, chances are you're pulling early, okay? Instead of being straight arms, you're probably pulling early, and that's why your shoulders are in tenderness, let's say. So forearms next, hands together, wax on, wax off. And then push down, so keep pushing them together as you bring your hands down in front of you. And you should find that right in your wrists and underneath your, like the lower forearm, should get a really nice stretch now. And if you're pushing well enough, your fingers will get a nice stretch too. Because, well, you're rowing kind of, especially in that hooked position, can kind of cause just a little bit of kind of stiffness to your fingers. So this will then kind of stretch them back out quite nicely, I hope. Okay, so that's your forearms done. Next up, let's do biceps. So sit on your seat, swing your arms behind as though you're what's the word I'm looking for? Ski jumper, there we go. And then rotate your thumbs outwards, okay? And that just kind of lengthens out your biceps, the long head of your bicep, and will help you give it a nice little stretch as you do so. So like, ooh, look, stretchy biceps. But like I've recently said in previous videos, by doing this, you then also contract your triceps. So I can feel that my triceps are kind of like quite, I don't have big triceps, but I can feel that nice, kind of, they are very kind of tight and contracted from doing this. So that's why I do the triceps last. So let's do them. So hand up in the air, it goes round your back, touches your spine. Use your other hand to help that elbow back so that it's pointing straight up to the sky. Reach for the sky. I watched the Lightyear film a couple of days ago, actually. Holly, my youngest, and I went to see it. And it was lots of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's maybe not quite of the quality of a Toy Story, the kind of emotional side of it and whatever, but it doesn't need to be. It was still just a fun romp. Let's change arms. It was a Sunday morning, 10 o'clock in the morning showing as well. So it was just me and Holly in the cinema, and it was great. I don't really like people when they talk and make noise during the film, so to go for the first showing on a Sunday morning tends to be as few people there as possible. There we go, right. And that's us done. I was too busy talking that I've not realised I've got to the end. So again, it's one of these revisit videos because to be honest, I've got a huge archive of rows going back to like 2018, and although I'm not going to continue to kind of constantly just dredge up old ones, I think it's worthwhile at least kind of looking at them, if only so you can laugh at me with my silly haircut and beard and kind of various states of, do I have a stomach, do I not have a stomach, do I have biceps, do I not have biceps? Because it just shows how rowing can help. I actually think it's quite a good historical, if you look at the shape of me and whatever over the past 4 years, it just shows how the difference between thinking about nutrition and what I'm eating versus how much I'm training and all that kind of stuff, how it does make a difference. And I do tend to talk about it all in the video, so you do get an idea of, all right, this is when he was, because especially May 2020, that was right as lockdown had just hit. And I just kind of thought, oh no, we're all doomed, and kind of just ate all the food I could find and stuff. So, and you can quite clearly see that in the video. So anyway, so I do hope you enjoyed the row. I know I certainly did. It was a nice one to go back to. I will get back to regular programming of something else soon. There's something planned coming up, which I will let you know more about. But of course, I try and keep these in a time bubble. I don't want to talk too much about where we are in the world and time and stuff. So until another video, whether it's one of my app reviews or a technique tip or another RowAlong workout, I do hope you take care of yourselves. So I'll see you in a future video. Be well. Bye-bye.